For today's phonics lesson, our objective is, ready? I can identify things that begin with the E sound. And remember, the E says eh, eh. All right, okay, so let's get started identifying things that begin with our E sound. You will need your beginning sounds E worksheet. You will need a pencil. You will also need crayons and your mini book for afterwards. Okay, TK, so our first step is to always write your name. Go ahead and write your name at the top. All right, TK, so once you've written your name, we're gonna go ahead and start looking at our photos and we're gonna sound each of these pictures out. Now, if they do begin with E, I'm gonna write it on our E side because it does begin with E. And if they don't begin with E, I'm gonna write the word on that side. This way, you'll get to see if the letter E is at the beginning of the word. All right, let's go ahead and get started with heart. Does the heart, does that begin with the letter E? Heart? No, right? That does not begin with the letter E. So I'm gonna put an X, but I'm also gonna write it on our board. Heart. Heart begins with the letter H, not the letter E. So we're gonna keep it on this side. All right, next word. This is an explorer. An explorer, that does begin with the letter E. So I'm gonna circle it on my side, but I want you to circle and color your explorer. And while you're coloring, I'm gonna write our word explorer on the board. I underlined the letter E in explorer so you can see that it does begin with the letter E. All right, TK, we're moving on to dinosaur. Does dinosaur begin with the sound? No, right? So we're gonna put an X on that and we're not gonna color that. I'm gonna write that word on our side that does not begin with the letter E. Dinosaur begins with the letter D. All right, TK, let's look at our next one. What about our ball? Does begin with the sound? No, right? So we're gonna put an X on ball and we're gonna write that word on the side that does not begin with the letter E. So you can see that it begins with the letter B. Ball. All right, TK, moving on to our next one. This is a piece of corn. Does corn begin with the sound? No, right? It begins with the C. So we're gonna write that word on this side. Corn begins with the C. All right, moving on. This is a helicopter. Does helicopter begin with the sound? No, right? That begins with the H. What about this one? An envelope. Does envelope begin with the sound? Yes, it does. So you're gonna go ahead and color your envelope. And I'm gonna write it on our side that does begin with the E sound. Envelope. It does begin with it. All right, TK, let's move on. What about fish? Does fish begin with the No, right? That begins with the F. So we're gonna put an X right there. And I'm gonna write it on our side in a bit so you can see that fish begins with F. But we're gonna move down here. What is this? This is an elf. Our elf, does that begin with elf? Yes, it does. So go ahead and color your elf while I write our two new words on the board. So you're coloring your elf and elf does begin with E. Do you see how it begins with the E? And I'm gonna move over here and I'm gonna write our word fish. And remember, we said fish doesn't begin with the E sound. That begins with the F. All right, TK. Moving on to our candle. Does candle begin with the sound? No, right? What does candle begin with? Let me write it and see if we can figure it out. That begins with the C. See that? Candle. All right, TK. Let's move on. This is our egg. Does egg begin with E? It does, right? So we're going to circle our egg. And I'm going to write it on the side that begins with the letter E so you can see that it begins with it. Go ahead and color your egg. Egg does begin with the E. All right, TK. Our list is getting pretty big. Do you see it? All right, let's see if we can find some more things that begin with the E sound. Does elephant begin with the It does, right? So I'm going to circle my elephant, and I want you to color it on your side because it does begin with the E sound. I'm going to write it on my board.
I'm looking.
All right, TK. So now we have our last picture. This is our apple. Does that begin with the sound? Does that sound like No, right? So we're not going to color that. And I'm going to actually write that word on our side that does not begin with the E. Apple begins with the A. Do you see that? All right, TK. So once you've completed this and you colored your pictures that do begin with the E sound, so you're coloring the explorer, envelope, elf, egg, and elephant. Once you've completed that, you're going to go ahead and take out your mini book, and we're going to flip open all the way to our last page. On this page, we're going to read the directions. We are going to circle the pictures that begin with E. So just like we did on our worksheet right now, I want you to circle all of the pictures that you find that begin with the sound. Make sure you circle them and color them, and go ahead and take a picture of your finished work, both worksheets, and submit it on Class Dojo. Good luck, TK. Have fun.